Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a PS2 game. And that happens to be Colosseum Road to Freedom. And it was developed by Gosho and was published by Koei and was released in 2005 in North America. Yeah, it's been quite a while since I've taken a look at a game that actually came out to North America. And since it's a Koei published game, it was one that I easily could have mentioned in that obscure games by Koei video that I did, but instead I saved it for this video. And this happens to be a mixture of a arena fighting game, but also mixed with an action RPG. And obviously it's a Gladiator game, so you know what that means. It's manly as shit, and it's overwhelming with testosterone. Because have you ever heard of a Gladiator game that was unmanly like a bowl of yogurt? I sure as hell haven't. So for now, let's get talking about the main game itself. So you got two modes. You got story mode, and you also got skirmishes, which allows you to just, play like random battles. So as for the story mode, well, the story in this game is very basic, so I'll go over it quickly. So your character was a slave that is now being bought and turned into a gladiator, and now you have to win your freedom by keep winning and getting prize money. And you win your freedom by paying off your debt. So yes, this is a game where you gotta pay off your debt. Yeah, it's one of those kind of games. But at least you're actually paying off your debt in a very interesting way, unlike real life. So you just gotta keep winning until you break your freedom, and of course, you gotta become the best of the best, and then they die like the rest. So yeah, that's basically it. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of cutscenes at the beginning of the game, and that tells you like how you got to where you are and all this, but it's whatever stuff. But one thing that I should mention about this is that at the very beginning of the game, the guy will ask you a bunch of random questions like where you're from and what gods do you believe in and all that type of stuff, and this actually works into the character that you are. Where depending on the choices you pick, then you actually have different stats to start with. So after all that, you do some practice fights to see if you truly are worthy enough. And then when you go to the main base, this is where the main game begins. So this game has a schedule where you start off in your main room where you get to save your game or check out the equipment that you currently have within the box. And the first thing you gotta do is that you gotta go to the training session where you get to do two mini games. And those being is dodging and throwing. And you can do one of each, or you can do two of the one. And if you do well enough at these, then you'll be able to have some more EXP points to spend. But let me tell you, the dude that runs this course is a fucking asshole. Even if you get like a perfect run, he still says that you're not good enough. Like, what a piece of shit. So after when that's over with, then you get to do lunchtime, which allows you to spend the points on different attributes, being like strength, dexterity, agility, all that kind of stuff. And then after that, you go to sleep again, and then it's the next day, and then here you get to go to the big events. So in here, you get to go through all the weapons and armor pieces that you can acquire, and of course there's also a healing station, but it's like stupidly expensive at first. But one really important thing I should mention is that the way how you buy things is a little confusing, is that you have to like literally pick up the weapon or the armor piece, and then you go to the guy, and then you buy it. And then you have to store it into the box immediately, because if you try to take that weapon to like where the gate is, the guards will stop you and tell you to drop your weapons, and if you do that, then you'll actually lose your weapon. So yeah, that's something important you need to know, because I fucked up on that the first time I played. So if you want to use any of the stuff that you bought, then you basically have to smuggle them in. It's kind of weird. But once you know that, then you pretty much never have to worry about it ever again. So once you go to the main guy, you get to pick your different game modes, being Battle Royale, Team Deathmatch, Survival, Hunting, and Duel. And at first glance, you can only do the bronze ones. Any of the silver or gold ones you can't do until much later on, because there is a ranking system in the game, and of course you gotta grind to get higher. And once you survive doing all the fights that you can do within a day, then you go back to the carriage and you sleep again, and then, well, it's rinse and repeat everything I said over and over again. So if you really think about it, this game's structure is sort of like Monster Hunter, where, the story is there, but it's just there for being there. But then the whole routine of leveling up your character, leveling up your weapons and your equipment pieces, and, and doing like the same type of stuff over and over again to get better stuff, I mean, yeah, that part is actually very much like a Monster Hunter type of game. Also, same thing goes to God Eater as well, although that game has more focus on story though. But yeah, that's really what this game really reminds me of. But instead of hunting down monsters, you end up killing a bunch of people within the Colosseum. Well, I guess there's the hunting mode where you get to kill a bunch of bulls, but, you know, that's like the closest it gets to that part. But as for the game's controls for the combat sections, they are rather interesting to say the least, but I'll go over it quickly. So first, let's talk about the basic button layout. So the 4 face buttons allows you to do different attacks, being with overhead, low, left, and right strikes. And if you hold down triangle, being the higher strikes, then it allows you to do a power move which does a lot of damage. R1 allows you to block, and holding L2 while moving in a direction allows you to do a barrel roll to dodge. And if you hold L2, it brings up a skill cross, and then whenever you press a button with it open, then it does a special attack, but of course these are limited. And if you hold R1 and then press an attack button, then it allows you to do a parry. And just like many other games with a parry attack, it's not easy to do. And if you press L1, it allows you to pick up items, being like the skills and such. And I should also mention that by holding down L1 while pressing either square, triangle, or circle, then allows you to pick up weapons and armor off the ground. And it gets equipped to whichever button you press, so if you want to pick up someone's helmet and steal it off him, then you gotta press L1 and triangle to put it to your head. So yes, you can actually steal people's weapons and armor in this game, which is pretty cool, because that's how I got this nice green shield here. So that's the basic control layout. It does seem a little bit cumbersome at first, but you do get used to it though. But now, how do the controls feel though? Well, I think the controls in this game, I think they feel fine for the most part. Like, you know, it doesn't feel delayed, it doesn't feel slow, it doesn't feel like it has like bad hit detection or anything like that, which is good. But the weird thing is that I feel like the flow of movement in this game is really hard to explain, because it doesn't feel slow, but it doesn't feel like slippery either. Like, it feels very floaty almost. Like, I don't even know if that even makes any damn sense, but yeah, that's the best I can come up with for it. Like, it doesn't feel awful or unplayable or anything like that, but instead it just feels like it almost hits the mark, but not quite. So yeah, it's kinda strange, though I was able to get used to it though, but it was definitely not what I was expecting for this kind of game though. But the one issue that I do have with this game that I do think is much worse than that has to be the targeting system in this game. So you actually don't have a lock-on at all that you can control, so that alone kinda sucks. And whenever you're in a match where there's like a lot of people in it, then it just seems like that your character just seems to just attack wherever he wants, which is kind of frustrating. Now if you're fighting like one-on-one, then it's not noticeable and it's fine. But sometimes on these like battle royale ones where there's like a ton of people, then it can get pretty annoying. So while the controls may feel kinda weird for this type of game, I definitely do think it is playable, and I think that the biggest issue has to be the targeting. This game desperately needs a targeting system. But otherwise, I would say that the controls are alright for the most part, just may take some time to get used to. So now, let's get moving on to the other things, like the graphics. And I think for a PS2 game in 2005 that was made by a low-budget company named Go-Show, who I've never heard of before, I think this game looks pretty damn good. So I think all the backgrounds are pretty good looking for PS2 standards, and of course the character models look pretty good, and I do like a lot of the armor pieces that you can get, some of them look pretty cool. And also there's a lot of variety of weapons in this game. Like, I was surprised like how many they had. Like, they have like swords, daggers, and they have all different kinds of those, and there's like maces, axes, like lances, like there's a lot. And I think they all look pretty good too, and they all have like different looks for them as well. But I have to say that the most impressive part about the graphics in this game has to be the intro. Like, it almost looks like a PS3 game, like that's how damn good it looks. But probably my only one negative thing that I have to say about the graphics though would have to be the fact that there's just not a whole lot of like color to the game, which I guess makes sense because most games that are like this also don't really have a lot of color either, unless it's like bright red blood when you hit someone in the face. But what I'm trying to say is that I just wish there was a little bit more variety. Like, texture-wise, the graphics look good for the stages and the character designs, but I just wish there was like more different like other ones. But other than that, I'd say that the graphics are pretty good for what they had. So now, as for the game's music, The music is, well, it's just like the story. It's there, it exists, but it's just nothing really super memorable. It's fitting, but it's just, there's no, like, catchy tunes, and because this is a Koei published game, it would have been cool if they made them be like, yo, put in some, like, motherfucking metal music, bitch. I would have been all over that, but unfortunately it seems like it was not meant to be. But overall, it's a pretty forgettable OST, unfortunately. So now, if you want to go out and buy yourself a copy of this game, at least as I'm recording this, the cheapest I've seen it for was $25, and the highest I've seen it for was $101, but that dude is probably smoking something. But more commonly, it seems to get thrown around for like 30 to 40, mostly 30s though. And there's quite a few of them out there, although I know when it comes to me personally, I've only ever seen a copy of this game once before, so it might be tough to find out in the wild, although that might just be depending on the area, because my area sucks sometimes. But yeah, it's affordable at least, it's not stupidly expensive. So now, as my overall thoughts on Colosseum Road to Freedom, is that this is a game that I probably do like a little bit better than I should, but I still wouldn't say I love it or think it's great, but overall, I think it's decent at best, and even then that's a little generous too. Because there are some things about this game that I actually do really like, and then there are certain things that I don't like. So here's what I like about the game. So I like the fact that this game has a lot of weapon variety and armor pieces and everything. I think that's pretty great. And I also really like the fact that you get to level up your character with different stats, and you get to mess around with different builds and weapons and all that. And while the combat isn't perfect, I do think it is mostly playable and actually is pretty decent. With the exception of one thing, which I've already mentioned, being the lock-on. That thing is total shit. But if that was improved upon and everything else was the same, I think it would have been fine. And as for the bad, well, I already mentioned the lock-on, so there's one. And secondly, there's no character creation at all, so I really wish that this game had like some sort of character creation. Like, it doesn't have to be the most in-depth shit ever, but I at least want something. Also, this game can get really repetitive, not with the combat, but just with the whole doing things in a routine. I just think it just gets really repetitive, and I can easily see this game getting really burnt out on a lot of people if you were trying to play it for hours and hours on end, so I can't recommend it if you're trying to do that. And the last thing I want to say is that, well, the game is basically just an endless grind until you get your freedom, and that's it. And that also goes into why I'm not super huge into the whole Monster Hunter games, because I've played some of them before, and, well, I do respect them. I'm just not crazy into them, because I just feel like that they just get really boring quickly, unless you're playing with other people. And that's the main thing, that if you're playing with other people versus playing by yourself, it's like a totally different experience. And for this game, well, unfortunately, you can't play the story mode with two people, so that option's out. But damn, thinking about it now, if this game had two-player mode for the story mode, that actually would have been pretty awesome. So yeah, overall, I'm pretty mixed on this game, where some things I like, some things I'm not crazy about, and then other things that could have made some big improvements on. But overall, I wouldn't say it's a bad game, because I did have some fun with it. Because once I got the hang of everything, some of the battles I actually was having a pretty fun time with. It's just that it's not a game that I can play for many hours on end. Like, I had to take a lot of breaks while I was playing this game. So knowing all this, it is a little tricky to recommend, but maybe if you do like those other games like Monster Hunter, God Eater, or Tokiden I think it's called, then there is a chance that you may like this game. It's just, you know, the whole combat being a little bit on the dated side I can see some people not being into, and like I said, the game's lock-on target is just asshole. So yeah, despite its issues, I do like some things about it that I can appreciate, but before we end it here, I do have some interesting stuff to talk about, that this game actually does have some sequels. So after this, the next game was called Gladiator Road to Freedom Remix, which is Japan only on PS2, and it's pretty much like an expansion pack for this game, where that it actually adds more stuff to the game, and hopefully they can actually like fix some of the stuff that I talked about. So that would be something I wouldn't mind trying in the future. Maybe we might even get a fan translation of it, who knows. But then after that, we actually got another game called Gladiator Begins for the PSP, and this one also came out to North America. And that seems to be all the games, and maybe I might have to take a look at those other ones at some point, because this game does have its cool ideas, and I would like to see them improve it more, but we'll have to see how that goes. So anyways, that's all I have to say, so thanks for watching and commenting, and have yourselves a great day.
Welcome, dead man. The type of gladiator you will become will depend on your answers to my questions. First of all, where are you from? Ah, Britannia!
Lelouch v. Britannia commands each one of you. Be my slaves. Now!
Okay.
You win!